One night, the girl was brushing her teeth, and she noticed something strange. She was smiling, but her reflection wasn't. And that's when she realized something very disturbing. Her whole body was there too. She could see her legs under the covers, but they weren't her legs. They were the legs of her reflection. Suddenly, the girl felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She screamed, turned around, but there was nothing there. She stared directly at the mirror and said, "I'm going crazy. If I break this mirror, will you leave me alone?" But the reflection smiled and said, "No, you're not crazy. You're me. And once I'm out, we can be together forever." The girl hesitated, then swung the hammer as hard as she could. The mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces. She screamed, but her reflection just kept smiling. And that's when the girl realized the terrible truth. She wasn't looking at a reflection. She was looking at herself, except she was trapped inside the mirror and she was reaching out for help. The girl smashed the mirror some more, then put her hand through the shards and pulled herself out. To her horror, she found her real body lying dead inside the wall. And that is when she knew that whoever or whatever was in the apartment with her wasn't her friend. It was her enemy. She looked back at the mirror and saw that her reflection was smiling. She wasn't smiling. She looked at the mirror again and mouthed the words, "What are you?" The reflection smiled and mouthed the words, "It's me." The reflection was actually ahead of her. Its smile faded as she continued to smile. When she stopped smiling and turned around, the reflection was back to normal. Everything seemed fine. She thought maybe she was just tired and imagining things. So she went to bed. She turned on the light, stared directly into the mirror, and noticed something strange. She dreamed that she was being chased through a dark forest by an unknown figure. She could hear its footsteps behind her. She turned around, but she couldn't see anything in the darkness. Then she woke up and gasped. She was drenched in sweat and her heart was pounding. She looked over at the mirror and saw that the reflection was also scared. It was gasping for air and its eyes were wide with fear. But she wasn't dreaming. The reflection was in her room with her. Someone had taped a small piece of paper to the wall above the sink. She walked over and read what was written on it. It was writing backward, but it said, "Let me in." It said, "Don't speak to it. No matter what it says, it's not me." She was confused. What did that mean? She covered all of the mirrors in her apartment with black plastic. But every time she turned around, she could see her reflection in the windows, the puddles, even her phone screen. Her friends said she looked off, like her reactions to things were a few seconds delayed. And they couldn't understand why. Was someone playing a prank on her? She looked back at the mirror. Nothing was behind her. She ripped the paper off the mirror and threw it in the trash can. Then she went to bed. A young woman moved into a new apartment, but when she woke up, she knew she had to go to work, so she got up and went to the bathroom to wash her face. When she stared directly into the mirror, she saw that the reflection was different. It wasn't her. In the mirror was a woman with the same hair and build, but her eyes were darker, and she had a cruel, sinister smile on her face. Startled, the girl screamed and backed away from the mirror. The first night she was there, she went to use the bathroom. She couldn't get the weird note out of her head. She tossed and turned in bed for hours. Eventually, she fell asleep. At first, the reflection stayed the same, but then it began to change. The girl blinked and the reflection blinked too. Except it blinked much slower than she did. The girl frowned and the reflection frowned as well, but it still hadn't caught up to her movements yet. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. The reflection didn't move its mouth. She waited a few seconds, then tried again. Still, the reflection didn't move. Finally, the girl smiled and waved at her reflection. The reflection mimicked her actions, but it was slightly delayed. This continued for a few weeks. The reflection would always mimic her actions, but it lagged behind by a couple of seconds. But that night, the reflection in her mirror did something that scared her. That's when she noticed that it wasn't just her face that was in the mirror. Then the reflection began writing on the mirror. The girl couldn't believe her eyes. The girl was terrified. But one day, the girl decided she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed a hammer and went to the bathroom.